I go back and I think first of my father. When I was born, he was a band director in small towns, poor towns in Louisiana, like Breaux Bridge and Opelousas. He struggled with his students. He didn't even talk about music. He just talked about them speaking English. One of his fellow directors was John Fernandez. That was my first teacher. I was 6 years old. He told me that the instrument was too serious for what I was doing. He said, don't come back. And I didn't. Instead of giving me gold stars, he would put bad marks on my paper. At that time, I was struggling to play the Marine hymn. At 8, I played in the Fairview Baptist Church marching band under the instruction of Danny Barker. Mr. Barker taught us to fulfill the role of our instrument. So what that meant was, man, play some lead on that trumpet, son. And we played songs like Just a Closer Walk with Thee and Down by the Riverside. So every step along the way, I was learning some music. I learned a lot of traditional New Orleans music. And let me tell you, we weren't interested in learning that. This was in the era of the big afro. Nobody was thinking about no Hello Dolly. We wasn't thinking about that. But thank the Lord I was there to learn a body of music I still can remember and recall instantly. My next teacher at 10 was named Alfred Vance. He taught me out of the Auburn's book, and I had to play songs like I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair. Also not a favorite. I stopped taking lessons from him because he told me I needed to practice. And I told my father, man, I don't need lessons to be told something that I know already. At 11, I studied with a guy named Joe Smith because I liked his afro. He played in one of the most popular funk bands in New Orleans at that time. I would get to his house on Sunday morning, and he always had a girl in there. It was a shotgun house, so you could see from the front door through the whole house. And he would always open the door enough for me to see inside and would pretend that he was angry that I had come, all the while giving me a peek. He didn't teach me too much about the trumpet. We studied out of the Rubank Method book. My next teacher when I was 12 was named John Longo. He agreed to teach me for $5, and then, because everybody was struggling at that time, he said he would trade for piano lessons with my father. He never took the piano lessons. My lessons would be 2 or 3 hours long. At my first lesson in a double shotgun house in which one side was burned out, he said the foundation of playing was sound. And he played on a beat-up record player 2 recordings for me. The Chicago Symphony with Adolph Herseth playing pictures at an exhibition, and Clifford Brown with strings, with Clifford Brown playing A Portrait of Jenny. I can remember this like it was yesterday. All his kids running around. He told me to learn both of these, the opening passage of pictures and the whole Clifford Brown solo by ear from the recording. And he said, man, you have to hear sound, bro. You have to hear sound. They don't print sound on music. You have to hear sound. So I started trying to practice on my sound. As a freshman, my high school band director was George Marks. He knew that my father was a great musician. But my audition was so sad, he asked, are you sure you're Ellis's son? I'm not making none of this up. In our band, we played pieces like The Stars and Stripes Forever and Francis Macbeth's Incantation and Dance. Mr. Marks was a trumpeter and he loved jazz. He asked to borrow some of my father's Clifford Brown Max Roach recordings. And for some reason, that always impressed me because those recordings were largely unknown at that time. I mean, we were listening to Parliament Funkadelic and James Brown. Clifford Brown, Tony knows. You remember that time, man. No laugh. New Orleans boy right there. We were playing all these bands together. My next teacher at 14 was named Norman Smith. He was principal trumpet in the New Orleans Symphony. I would always see Norman's girlfriend, and she played violin, and I thought that it was a hickey that she had on her neck. So I would say, man, the dude, he looks very conservative, but he must be kind of wild. I'm telling you what I thought. He taught me to play with a clear attack. And we worked on pieces like the Hummel Trumpet Concerto and Stravinsky's Petrushka. He gave me exercises, get a good popping attack. During this same time, William Fielder, trumpet professor from Mississippi Valley State, came to New Orleans. And my first trumpet teacher, who had sent me home when I was 6, John Fernandez, brought him to my house. And Fielder gave me a lesson. He left me with a piccolo trumpet. I had been listening to a Maurice Andre record, and I had never heard of a piccolo trumpet. So I asked him, man, how does the dude get this sound on these? And I was trying to play the Leopold Mozart Concerto on a B-flat trumpet. He said, man, he's playing a piccolo trumpet. And he started to laugh at me like I should know what it was. He went to the car and brought out a piccolo trumpet and said, if you can play the third movement of the Brandenburg Concerto No. 2 by the time I get back, I'm going to let you have this horn. I put a mouthpiece in and nothing came out. First I thought it was a deal. Then I said, okay. I made sure he wasn't seen back to my house until I could play it. He then gave me that Queen on trumpet right on the spot and threw in a Bach F trumpet for $50.